Hey there, you're listening to the Pursue Your Spark podcast. My name is Heike Yates, and on this show we talk about how to unlock your potential in your fitness lifestyle with tips, strategies, and interviews to help you create the life you love. Well, hello there, and welcome to another episode of the Pursue Your Spark podcast. I'm your host, Heike Yates, and today in episode number 28, we're talking about how to silence your inner critic. But before we dive in, I want to thank you so much for being here. It really means the world to me. When I start recording, since I don't have a recording studio, I'm sitting here at my desk recording. I'm picturing you on the other side of the microphone, listening to my stories, and that always makes me feel so connected to you. As you may know, I have a new podcast coming out every other week, and I keep you posted on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, and of course iTunes, and now also on Google Play, so you know when a new episode is up. Did you listen to last week's podcast, number 27, with Deborah Darling? It was a huge success. Deborah turned from housewife to supermodel, but it's not what her story is about. It's about how she started loving herself and appreciating her body. So if you missed this one, you gotta listen to that one. So it's episode number 27, Women on the Move, the incredible transformation of Deborah Darling. So with that in mind, let's dive into today's episode number 28, how to silence your inner critic. All of us have a little voice in our head telling us that we could have done better, that we're not beautiful enough, that we're not worthy of a happy relationship, that we're ugly, or that we are incompetent. We hear this little voice over and over in our head that tells us negative things instead of filling our mind with positivity. Some of the women in my private Facebook group, The Art of Igniting Your Spark, and I will put a link also in the show notes so you can join our private Facebook group, The Art of Igniting Your Spark. They told me that how uncomfortable they feel when they want to take an exercise class. Let's set the stage. You want to start a new exercise program, but you hear the little voice in your head telling you things like, I don't know how to do any of these exercises. Everyone will make fun of me. I'm too old to learn new exercise habits. I better not even start. Everybody's looking so confident and fit. I will never fit in, and you pinch your waist. Exercise may be something new and unfamiliar, so it feels, a bit threatening maybe at first. It may make you uncomfortable and vulnerable. In the end, you decide that exercise is not for you, and you simply keep sitting on the sofa, doing nothing. If you hear this little voice popping in your head more often than you like, holding you back from the goals you set out for yourself, then today's podcast is definitely for you. And you know what? Everybody has a bad day when things just don't go right for whatever reason. That's not the inner critic I'm talking about today. Last week was an okay week for me, and on Fridays was just not good at all. Fridays is the day where I compile my materials for my blog posts and podcasts. I record the materials I have, and I plan out some of the articles and posts for the weeks to come. But last Friday, nothing worked out. My laptop froze several times, so frustrating. But there's nothing I could do to fix it. I didn't know why it froze, and I'm not super tech savvy. I can fix some things, but it just wouldn't work. And my husband was not anywhere near to help it. So I turned my laptop on, I turned it off, and I had a little bit of internet. So I said, okay, let's Google what the problem might be and how to solve it. So in the end, I wasted a ton of time and energy, and I got very little done. My husband later helped me with this, and it was something super simple. So instead of wasting my energy, I just should have done something else. knowing that I'm not super tech savvy. Well, I'm not tech savvy, let's put it that way. But I can fix some things, but it just didn't work out that way. In the end, this is not something I'm going to beat myself up over. He showed me what to do. I learned something new, which is great. So I can, the next time this happens, I know what to do. But today, I'm talking about the inner critic that just keeps nagging at you every day, whether you're aware of it or not. We let ourselves get away with a surprising amount of negative self-talk. Sometimes it happens so often, like I said, it just becomes background noise and we don't even recognize it. But this kind of criticism can be severely damaging to our self-confidence. The negative voice in our head just beats us down, and we're so critical about the things we want to achieve because of a flaw or something less than perfect. So we convince ourselves that we are not worthy or deserving, and self-doubt stops us from achieving our goals. This is something I don't talk about it really, but it's part of my history, a part of my story. I used to have a goiter. A goiter is something very common. I'm from Germany, from the mountain area in Munich area, and people have goiters, these things that make your throat look thicker, and it is like a growth underneath your skin. And when I was a teenager, my friends made always fun of me. I was so embarrassed that I had this thing on my throat and my neck that I covered it with a bandana, which made me even look more stupid. But I figured if I cover it, they won't see it, which they still did, and they kept making fun of me. I was always super self-conscious about the way it looked. So about 6 years ago, I had surgery. The doctors kept nagging at me saying, well, you have all these growth and it's your thyroid and you should do some tests and you could turn cancerous. So I finally gave in. I had some extremely painful biopsies done on my throat to figure out if the nodules in my throat that created this thickness around my neck were cancerous. And the result was they didn't know, and the doctors recommended that I should have surgery just in case that in the event I would have thyroid cancer, they would not detect it quick enough. So I was like, great, I'm finally getting rid of this thing around my neck. I had made sort of friends with this appearance, but still not. It still bothered me because I didn't look like everybody else. So went ahead with the surgery. Surgery went well, got a little itty bitty cut on the bottom of my throat, and I felt like $1 million. So guess what? Over the years, the skin has become more loose. Now, as the skin is loose, the color changes. My skin is discolorated. It's a little bit red. It's a little bit blotchy. I think that's the way you pronounce it, blotchy. And it just looks strange sometimes, especially in the summer when I'm out a lot in the sun. And I do put on sunscreen number 50 frequently, but it just is the way it is. So I've made peace with my funky looking throat, but still people look at me and I'm considering surgery to tighten my skin. So I'm thinking I should do more about it. I should be looking perfect. I should fix my throat so nobody keeps looking at me kind of funky. But you know what? I am not going to do it. I'm just going to let these people tell me whatever, and I talk to my inner critic to say, no, I am amazing. I am strong. I am a happy person. That throat does not make me who I am. And so with that, here are my 5 tips on how you can silence your inner critic. Number 1, listen to your inner voice. I know that sounds counterintuitive, but you allow your inner critic to take over and don't even realize it. When listening to your inner critic or your inner voice, take a step back and objectively listen to what you're telling yourself. Remember my story I just told. Oftentimes, the criticism stems just from your insecurities and the flaws we see in ourselves. When you really, truly listen objectively to what you're telling yourself, you know that frequently those negative thoughts are just silly. Number 2, stop the replay in your head. When you had a bad day or you made a mistake, you tend to replay the scenario over and over in your head. I sure do. Driving you crazy, and you will only feel worse and not correct the errors you made. Don't tell yourself, I am not going to think about it, because that never works. From my own experience, it just never works. And it just makes things worse because you keep circling around and around about the same scenario. Some negative thoughts are overly judgmental, but others are part of a real issue that needs to be addressed. If certain parts of your life need improvement, then we need to do something about it. Don't use it for a self-destructive talk that you once again did not make it to the exercise class you signed up for. Stop tearing yourself down and take action by setting achievable and trackable goals. Remember, start with baby steps. Number 3, be more compassionate towards yourself. Nobody is perfect, and telling yourself that we're not good enough is counterproductive. Sometimes the only way to silence your inner critic is to embrace your flaws and drown out the negativity. Our flaws are simply a work in progress, and we keep getting stronger as we continue to strive to become and do better. You know, I have a list of my strength and positive traits on my laptop. When I have a day where I have a lot of self-doubt and I feel I'm not good enough, or I'm not smart enough, or I feel just simply overwhelmed by other people, I pull out that list and remind myself how healthy, capable, and confident I am. Nope, that's not about blowing up my ego. It's just being honest with myself that I am not the way I am when my negative voice pops into my head. So try that. Compile a list of the things that are awesome about you so you can look at them. Or maybe ask your friends to help you out and ask them, tell me what you think is awesome about me. And there's your list. Number 4, would you tell your friend what you are telling yourself? Would you tell your friend that she's out of shape? That she's not smart enough? Not talented? Of course not. Instead, you tell them what? To believe in themselves, to take baby steps to achieve their goals, to think positive in any situation, to stay healthy and confident, and reach for the stars because they can. Self-confidence can be fragile at any stage in our life. And then we need to be sure that we're doing everything we can to support our positive mind and a positive mindset. Number 5. In number 5, I want to ask yourself some questions to feel alive, present, and awake. Those questions are inspired by a blog post written by Maria Shriver, and I thought they were so perfect for today's segment on how to silence your inner critique that I wanted to bring it in for you today. So ask yourself the following questions to feel alive, present, and awake. What really brings me joy? What inspires me? What energizes and motivates me to be positive? What interests me? What gives me a positive attitude to keep living for tomorrow? When you ask yourself these questions, notice the voice in your head. Is it filling your head with negative thoughts and self-critique? Then try to silence it with positivity. Over time, you will understand that this inner critique isn't helpful at all. This voice is tearing you down, not lifting you up. So instead, I encourage you to find your inner goodness, your strength, your compassion. your courage, your worth, and your beauty. Talk to your inner critique with compassion, as I mentioned in step number 4, and you will get stronger and start to silence the negative inner voice you need to drown this. So there you have it. 5 steps to silence your inner critique. Number 1, listen to your inner voice. Number 2, stop the replay. Number 3, be more compassionate towards yourself. Number 4, would you tell a friend what you're telling yourself? Number 5, questions to feel alive, present, and awake. Remember that everyone has a bad day at some point, and we all make mistakes. While your inner critique can sometimes blow these mistakes completely out of proportion, hopefully this blog can help you start feeling more compassionate and kinder towards yourself. It might take a little while to silence your inner critique and to start listening to your self-nurturing side. But you will definitely notice a difference in your confidence if you do. Let me know what steps you might start with and how things are going as you apply them into your life. So that's it for today. Thank you so much for listening, and give the show some love by leaving a review on iTunes or Google. I'll see you next time. Ciao.